Welcome to the Truth and Fertility Podcast. My name is Haley and I am your host. I work at an OBGYN clinic where I teach women and couples how to chart their cycles so they can either achieve or avoid pregnancy and also to manage their fertility. I have a huge passion to teach women and couples about the beauty of their fertility and how the pill is never the answer to women's health. There's a lot of good and not so good information out there about fertility. And so my goal with this podcast is to help you sort out the truth from the weeds. I want to teach you how to chart your cycle and to reach your family planning goals while also even possibly locating hormonal imbalances and to receive proper treatment. I want to help you get in the best hands that you can with the best doctors that you can to reach optimal reproductive health. So if you're ready to get on this journey with me to learn more about your reproductive system, how it was created, and how it should be working, and the best medicine in order to make it work if it is not, you are in the right place. I pray that this blesses you, so let's get to it. Hello, friends. I am so glad you are back with me on this podcast. Today, we are talking about one of my absolute favorite topics to talk about, which is, if you haven't seen from the title yet, we're talking about cervical mucus today, you guys. So a lot of people do not like the word mucus, but if you've listened to any other of my podcast episodes yet, you'll know that I say the word mucus a whole lot, and it is what it is. It's natural. It's normal. It's part of our body. It's a good thing. So I hope you are not super squirmish with the word mucus. You can also think of it like cervical mucus. It's also called discharge, right? So that's just a less squeamish way to talk about it, I guess. But I just say what it is. It's cervical mucus, guys. So that's what we're talking about today. So I really just want to go through all of the details about what this thing is, right? What is cervical mucus? Why is it important for your reproductive health, whether you are trying to get pregnant or not? So I'm going to kind of focus on two different things here. So your body as a woman should be producing cervical mucus, just point blank. That is a sign of a healthy fertility, is if you are having a proper buildup of cervical mucus. And we'll talk about here in a minute, like when you should be seeing that too. But no matter what your family planning intention is, no matter, it does not matter. That is a sign of proper health. Now, so I'm going to talk about just cervical mucus for health in general. And then I'm going to talk about how it is incredibly, incredibly helpful. Well, not even only helpful, but really necessary for pregnancy. So for those of you that are more in the mindset of wanting to achieve a pregnancy or are married or really just, interested in that topic. So I'm going to kind of do it twofold here. So really just quick to look at why is cervical mucus necessary for your health in general. Okay. So let's talk about your cervix. Okay. This is why it's called cervical mucus. This mucus or this discharge comes from your cervix. So if you can kind of think about the women's reproductive organ, right? She's got two ovaries on either side. And then from those ovaries are the fallopian tubes that connect the ovaries to the uterus. Okay. Then underneath the uterus, so the uterus is about the size of like an upside down pear, basically. And so then below the uterus is the cervix. Okay. The cervix is a canal. Okay. So there's like a hole through it, basically. And then below the cervix is your vaginal canal or your vagina. And then we have the outside, right? So we're talking about your cervix here. Okay. Now within your cervix are what we call the cervical crypts. Okay. So they're like little folds inside of your cervix. And so within these cervical crypts is where that cervical mucus is produced. And so your cervix responds directly to your hormones. Okay. So your hormones are just chemical messengers that tell different things in your body what to do. And so the main two reproductive sex hormones that I talk about a lot on this channel is estrogen and progesterone, right? So the cervix is going to respond directly to estrogen and progesterone because those two hormones are going to tell the cervix what to do in response to or in creating that mucus, right? Okay. So if we're looking at the cycle as a whole, the menstrual cycle, okay, the first day of the menstrual cycle is your period. So day one of bright red blood flow is day one of your period. The last day of your reproductive cycle, your fertility cycle, is the day before your next period, okay? And in general, right, we talk about this cycle length being about a month long. Now, I know and fully recognize some women have shorter cycles, some women have longer cycles, lots of women have irregular cycles, okay? But for the sake of just explaining cervical mucus and estrogen and progesterone, I'm just going to be talking about a plain old month-long cycle, okay? So a woman will bleed, about 5 to 7 days. And then after she has her period, estrogen begins to rise. Okay. And as estrogen starts to rise, it tells the cervix to start producing cervical mucus. So when estrogen is starting to rise, so towards the tail end of your period, you might have actually in between your period and when you start to see cervical mucus, you might actually have a few dry days. So where you have no mucus producing at all. And that's totally fine, normal, natural, good. If you don't have any dry days, that's also fine, normal, natural, and good. So some women go straight into seeing cervical mucus after their period too. But anyways, as estrogen starts to rise, it continues to tell the cervix to produce more and more cervical mucus. And so not only day by day should you be seeing even more cervical mucus, but it's also changing in the way that it looks and feels. So when estrogen is first starting to build, that mucus that you see is going to start out kind of being like, I don't know, like almost like dried glue. Like it's not very stretchy. It's probably white or maybe yellow in color. It's not super slippery. You may even see it in your underwear. It's just kind of there, right? Now, as estrogen begins to rise and rise and rise, and you're coming more towards the time of ovulation. Side note, ovulation is when an egg is released from your ovary. This happens once every cycle. And for women who have regular cycles, so about that month long, it's usually around the middle of your cycle. Okay. So if we're having estrogen rise and rise and rise, and so as you make your way towards ovulation, that mucus that you see is going to get a lot more stretchy and a lot more clear in color. And then it's going to get a lot more slippery too. So if you've ever like wiped after you go to the bathroom and it is like incredibly slippery, like it like hydroplanes when you wipe. And if you're hearing me right now and you're just like, yes, I totally know what you're saying, that is because of estrogenic mucus that is really, really high in estrogen. Okay. And so this mucus is really, really high estrogenic mucus. Microscopically, if you look at it under a microscope, it has a bunch of little tiny channels within it. It literally almost looks like an Olympic swimming pool. Like it has channels. And these channels are what allow sperm to swim through. Okay. Now I'm kind of moving into why cervical mucus is so important for pregnancy. It all kind of overlaps with each other. So I was hoping to kind of separate it one and the other, whereas just looking at it for health reasons and then for pregnancy reasons, but I'm going to kind of overlap because it all just overlaps. So these channels allow sperm to swim through the mucus. So the mucus actually helps in sperm transport. Okay. So that is of one of the reasons why cervical mucus is so important also to achieve a pregnancy is because without that cervical mucus, it is a lot more difficult for the sperm to actually get through the cervix, get through the uterus, get through the fallopian tubes, and actually meet the egg. In a conception normally occurs in the outer third of the fallopian tube, so closer to where the ovary is. Okay, that's usually where the egg and the sperm will meet. And so for the sperm to get all the way there, it needs cervical mucus. It needs those channels within that really high estrogenic mucus to actually push it through to where the egg is. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, also with that super high estrogenic mucus, it's going to contain a whole lot of sugars that keep the sperm alive. Okay. So not only does it help in sperm transport, but it also keeps the sperm alive long enough to be able to reach the egg. Okay. So that, for pregnancy's sake, that's why mucus is so, so important. Now, for just general health sake, whether you're trying to get pregnant or not, it is so important that your body is creating this because it is a direct reflection of what your hormones are doing. And no matter what your family planning intention is right now, or maybe you're not even married, you're not looking to have babies right now, it's still a direct reflection of the proper balancing of your hormones. Okay. And so we want to see that your estrogen is rising, 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 which is a direct cause or direct effect cause of your mucus starting to build up. It increases in quantity and it changes to get more stretchy, more slippery, more clear in color. Okay. Now, estrogen usually peaks about the day before your period, or sorry, not your period, the day before ovulation. Now, once ovulation happens, your body kind of makes a big switch. So, estrogen drops significantly and progesterone becomes the main player. And so, the way that cervical mucus changes when progesterone becomes dominant, so in this post ovulatory phase of your cycle, it actually does the exact opposite. It dries all of that mucus up. Okay. So before ovulation, because of estrogen, your mucus was super flowing. It was super slippery. It had all of those microscopic channels within it. When progesterone is high after ovulation occurs, when it dries up that cervical mucus, it pretty much closes those little microscopic channels. You can kind of think of your cervical mucus almost like a biological valve. Okay. When you think of a valve, you think of something that opens and closes. This is exactly what cervical mucus does for your body and for your fertility. So when your estrogen is really high, you're around the time of ovulation, those microscopic channels within your mucus are open. It's allowing sperm to travel through if intercourse were to happen, to more easily allow the sperm to hit the egg for fertilization, for conception to occur. Now, when progesterone is high, it closes up that valve. Those channels close off. Your mucus dries up. So you're probably going to see not as much mucus. You may even not see any cervical mucus after you ovulate and then for the remainder of your cycle until you have your next period, which is about a 2-week period of time. And so from ovulation, after ovulation until your next period, progesterone is going to be high, causing that cervical mucus to be really dried up. It almost even creates like a cervix plug, kind of, where that valve is closed. Okay, so there's no more sperm coming through there. It also helps with, blocking out any bacteria or just unwanted things in the vaginal canal. That is what cervical mucus is there to do. So that's kind of how it changes and ebbs and flows. So if you've heard of people charting their fertility, charting their cycles to either achieve or avoid pregnancy, exactly what I teach women and couples how to do, we're looking at cervical mucus primarily. Okay. There are some methods of charting where you can look at other biomarkers and other signs that your body gives you. But the main one that's really seen across the board with almost every method is going to be cervical mucus, because it is such a direct correlation to what your hormones are doing. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention about cervical mucus, why it is so, so important for pregnancy as well, and really giving you a true fertile window. So women are not fertile all the time, okay? That's just the way God made us, all right? So we are only fertile for about a week, give or take, of your cycle, no matter how long your cycle is, because whether you have a 30-day cycle or a 100-day cycle, you are only ovulating once in that cycle. And so a lot of women will learn how to chart their cycle so they can pinpoint when they are actually fertile, meaning they can pinpoint when, if they wanted to achieve a pregnancy, when to focus intercourse, right, to achieve that pregnancy, or if they wanted to avoid pregnancy, they would avoid intercourse during that fertile window. Now, cervical mucus is so important for this fertile window because an egg itself, when an egg is released from the ovary, the egg only lives up to 24 hours. Okay. So within a 24-hour time period, if the egg is not fertilized by a sperm, then the egg dies and there's no more pregnancy, right? No more possibility of pregnancy. Now, our fertile window as women is longer than 24 hours. Why? Because of cervical mucus. So let's just say, you know how I said earlier how cervical mucus helps in sperm transport? It has sugars that keep the sperm alive. So sperm without cervical mucus, the longest recorded time for a sperm cell to live outside of cervical mucus is 2 hours, okay? 2 hours. Now, sperm inside good cervical mucus, so that really, really high estrogenic cervical mucus, can live up to 5 days. Okay, so we are talking a difference between 2 hours and 5 days because of cervical mucus. So let me give you an example here. Let's say a woman were to have intercourse on a Monday, okay? That sperm from that active intercourse, if she has really good cervical mucus in the time that she had intercourse, that sperm could literally live within her body for up to 5 days. So let's say that this woman ovulates on a Thursday. Okay, that's when the egg is actually going to be released from the ovary and have its 24-hour window of viability. Well, the sperm that was in her body from the active intercourse on Monday could live within her cervix long enough to reach the egg that is released on Thursday. That is why women have a fertile window that's longer than just the 24 hours that the egg is viable. It is because of cervical mucus. So for women and couples that are trying to get pregnant, cervical mucus is so, so important. It is vital to your reproductive health and for pregnancy to occur. I work with couples at the OBGYN clinic. I work with couples that are trying to get pregnant and for some reason are struggling with infertility. And this isn't across the board, but in a lot of cases that I see, many of them struggle. Their bodies struggle to produce enough cervical mucus. I've seen, cycles where a woman is just completely dry, where her body just isn't producing any mucus at all. I've also seen cycles where there's limited amounts of mucus, and this can also make it difficult to produce that pregnancy. And so women that are, seeking help at the clinic that I work at, I, as their instructor, teaching them how to chart, I can see on their chart, okay, you're not producing a whole lot of cervical mucus. And then they give this chart to their doctor, and their doctor can, at least at my clinic, I love my clinic because doctors are trained to know how to read charts at my clinic. They can see her fertility chart and say, ooh, okay, you're not producing enough cervical mucus. How can we correct that? How can we fix that? What hormones do we need to give you? What different blood work do we need to do to figure out what's going on to get your body producing more cervical mucus so that you can successfully achieve pregnancy, right? So it is so, so important and so, so vital that your body is producing cervical mucus. Now, just for a second, let me talk to the women here that are listening who are not intending on getting pregnant anytime soon. We cannot just throw away this idea of cervical mucus. We cannot just throw it away and say, I don't really, if I'm not producing that, I'm not producing enough of it, I don't really need to think about that right now because I'm not trying to get pregnant right now. False. So false. Like I said earlier, cervical mucus, it is a literal biomarker. It is a sign that your body is giving you to tell you that your hormones are acting in the way that they should, that they are properly balanced. This is a sign of health. This is a vital sign, right? It is a sign that your reproductive system is working in a correct way. So even if you're single or you're not looking to achieve a pregnancy anytime soon, it is still so important that your body is producing a good amount of mucus at the time that it should be, which is around the time of ovulation. Okay. So if you have listened to this podcast and you're like, ooh, I want to learn more about cervical mucus, you want to learn more about, is your body producing a sufficient amount of this at the right times to make sure that your hormones are working in the way that they should? I would love to work alongside you to help you understand your body more and to help you figure this out. So I do have an online business. You can visit truthandfertility.com. I do virtual instruction on how to chart your cycle. So I would love to get on the phone with you to tell you more about what this process looks like. And I would love to walk alongside you in learning how to chart your cycle so that you can manage and maintain your fertility. So again, visit truthandfertility.com. You can shoot me an email from there and we can set up a free 20-minute discovery call and you can learn much more about what the process looks like. And then we can go from there. So again, that's truthandfertility.com. Thank you guys so much for sticking around, learning about cervical mucus. Oh, such good stuff. So important for your fertility and just for your general health. This isn't stuff that you learn in high school health class, you guys. So I'm really excited and just humbled to be able to be the one to teach you about this because of just how important it is. So thanks for sticking around, and I will talk to you guys again next week.